Hello guys, welcome to this new video lesson. Morning Song by Sylvia Plath. Morning Song is one of several poems Sylvia Plath wrote concerning pregnancy, birth, and maternity feelings. It is a very short poem that highlights the confused reactions of a mother giving birth to her child, and here the poem personas the speaker herself, Plath. And she tends, a mother who gives birth to her baby tends to the needs, so she cares, so she attends to the needs of her new baby. Now, I shall tell you the setting of this poem, Morning Song. This was written in the year 1961 during the month of February. It was a time when her daughter, Freda Rebecca, we already know that Sylvia Plath has got two children, her daughter, Freda Rebecca, and her son, Nicholas Hughes. Now, she is the eldest daughter, and when Freda entered her life, Plath was full of excitement and a lot of ambivalent and mixed emotions and feelings entered her, intervened with her soul. There is an absence of motherly love at the beginning of the poem that later gives way for the slow dawning of maternal instinctive emotions and care. So, at the outset of the poem, you can see a mother, too excited, overjoyed, but there is a shade or a shadow of a gloom and doom. So that's why it is said that a mixed a dichotomy of feelings is there. There is a push and pull of happiness and joy throughout the poem, which you are able to experience that it still sustains throughout the whole poem. So the poem is an ode to the birth of her daughter, Rebecca, of Freda Rebecca. Yes. Now, regarding the childbirth or the relationship between a mother and a child, of course, um, Sylvia Plath, she delineates and she lavishes her art and her skills and her verse in order to portray the freshness, the purity, the innocence, and some sort of a divinity, and what do you say, a feeling of perfection that a lady feels once she receives or she gives birth to a child. So a new life is created and a new life enters through parents' love for one another. That is what is apparent when a child is born. But then through conception, and a mother's love is traditionally very powerful and very strong, but quite typical and quintessential of Sylvia Plath, who already have a troubled, disturbing life. She suffered from a lot of neurosis, obsessive psychosis, mental breakdowns, and insanity, episodic breakdowns, and so many things. We all have in the previous video lesson, of course, I've introduced Sylvia Plath, schizoid, a schizophrenic, a paranoid, all together rolled into one. With what do you say, exceptional and unusual kind of art, beauty, beautiful, charming, and the beauty of her art. It's quite unbelieving and it's amazing that such a person, such a human being, is able to bring forth such pieces of charming beauty. So complications arise even between a mother and a child, or at least in the case of a mother, soon after the childbirth. And this is typical of Sylvia Plath. As the poem progresses, you are able to feel, or you get the impulses, or you have the feeling, or you really experience this thing. There is some sort of a doubt, there is some sort of darkness and distancing which is sustained in this poem. The speaker considers or compares the baby to a material thing. So there is a lot of subjective feelings at the same time, a lot of objective distancing and alienation of a mother with her child. So we shall move on into the poem. And mind you, the poem is full of lots of similes, metaphors, personifications, and hyperboles. Of course, a confessional poet credited as the exponent of confessional poetry, Sylvia Plath actually unveils or lays bare her mind and her soul, everything too intense and everything too personal. So, uh, confessional poets, they don't use symbolism, they don't use metaphors and similes just like the other normal or regular poets. For them, these metaphors and symbols, they are very direct. They don't go for any ornate, elaborate, defamiliarizing kinds of symbolism, or they don't go for universal symbols, just like you say, my love is a red, red rose. They don't go for that. Confessional poets, they tell you things very blatantly right at your face. We may feel that they are being offensive. We may feel that they are just showing off. We may feel that they are snapping at you, but then it is not that. They are just revealing, they are just giving vents to their very intense and very private and personal feelings and sensations and emotions that really are suffocating or choking the troubled waters of their within the troubled feelings and the struggling and choking pangs of pain within their heart and soul. So, at the outset of the poem, Morning Song, just like any other poems written by Sylvia Plath, that brings about the themes of pregnancy, childbirth, maternity feelings, the affectionate, the most intimate, the most attractive relationship between love between a mother and a child, and how a mother feels at the time of her a childbirth. And this is a short poem which shows the confused. I told you again, it's ambivalence. There is a pull and push between two feelings and two emotions. Her mind is torn apart just as she caters to the needs of her new baby. We shall move on to the poem. We have the first two stanzas of the poem here. Yes. Love set you like going like a fat gold watch. The midwife slapped your foot soles, and your bald cry took its place among the elements. Our voices echo, magnifying your arrival, new statue in a drafty museum. Your nakedness shadows our safety. We stand round blankly as walls. The poem begins with a beautiful word, love, of course. It starts with love, and this, in fact, is what is often associated with the bond between mother and a baby. So she begins with the word love. It is a, what do you say, a feeling or an emotion. It's an emotional, it's a very tender and emotional start. It's a universal kind of relationship between a mother and a child. It's the ever inspiring or ever energetic, the energy giving, the life giving source. It's nothing else but love. It sets you going like a fat gold watch. So the first stanza of the poem, Morning Song, is a narration of the birth of the child by the speaker of the poem. That is the mother herself, Plath herself, the speaker, the poem persona. The child is a precious gift which is born out of love. Love between whom? The parents, the wife and the husband, or the two partners, the mother and the father. Now it is compared to nothing else but a fat gold watch. So here starts the troubled feeling, or the stress and strained note, or echoes of pain, or echoes of doubt, and shadows overcast over this joyful, joyous, exciting moments of happiness. Now, as the baby steps into this new world out of the mother's womb, the midwife, the maid who takes care of the mother and the child, who helps the childbirth, the process of the procedure of childbirth, she is patting the child or she's touching or slapping the foot soles, just confirming that the new life has born into this world. And the little child is made its presence evident. How is the baby trying to confirm or to declare to this world that I'm here? Yeah, it gives out a sudden bold cry, and it's really lovely, to hear the first newborn cry of a baby, of course. So here, the baby is compared to a fat gold watch, which is very precious. And here, there is an objective note of a strain here. And this creates a lot of tension that carries on throughout the poem. The baby is being likened to an object, a watch, which suggests or which we people who already know the troubled and the voyeuristic kinds of marriage, the futile, the failed marital life of Sylvia Plath, the poet herself. We know that at that with that backdrop, if you look at this particular resemblance or this particular comparison, you will realize that lovemaking and the child being born out of such a lovemaking is purely mechanical, and there is no sort of a love or an affectionate or a passionate love between the partners who have given birth to this child. So maybe that's a reason. This all suggests that something mechanical is a product of lovemaking. So here, the reader is a witness to the birth of an entity that has been wounded up and will now become the focus of the mother's life. So, some sort of a mechanical drudgery is taking place in the mother's life, and somehow she had some physical relationship which is monotonous, which is mechanical, which might be loveless for the word. But then the child is born. Now the mother is happy. Now the whole world, the whole focus, the whole concentration, her whole credo and essence of her life is just the baby. It's ticking away the time. So here the midwife is bringing, and our voices are echoing, so it intimates the arrival of the new baby. And there is a midwife bringing the baby into the real world with a slap, the bold cry is personalized, and it becomes a primitive, basic addition to life. Yes, of course. That's why it is called the elements. Elements means, of course, earth, air, water, fire, etc. The weather, climate, the physical environment, the natural surroundings. So the baby has come. The baby has arrived. It takes its place. It occupies its space in the elements of this whole world. It is more likely the former, as Plath was a keen enthusiast for the occult, astrology in particular. So I can see them as the source from which she has drawn her image. That is astrology, in fact. Now, moving on to the second stanza, she talks about the voices which echoes, magnifying your arrival. You are a new statue, of course. This is heavily punctuated because you can see full stops and commas everywhere. Yes, the baby is born with a cry, which has an effect on the parents who reciprocate, enlarging the effect instinctively. And you can see again the impersonal feeling that is new statue. Yeah. Not only is the baby a watch, but is now a statue. Something around which people stand and study. It is just an object. It is just a commodity, something which does not have even a life. It is just a body. People surround it and they look at it, inspect it, examine it, and they have their own views and attitudes and perspectives. They have their own opinions regarding this. They are standing in a drafty museum, a very dark and cold place. There is no love, there is no affection in these lines, even though she has begun this poem with the word the most beautiful word in this world, love. See, towards the fifth or the sixth line of the poem, it is completely a drafty museum. Your nakedness is shadowing our safety, and we stand round blankly as walls. So, to complete the image, this statue is in a very dark place with so much of cold feelings surrounding it. The room seems so old, and it is so cold. Is the you may wonder whether the speaker is referring to the house, or it's simply she's making use of a metaphor. The emphasis on the baby being a thing distances the mother, undermines the instinctive bond, but it objectifies the whole experience. Now, these lines reflects the mother's misconceptions, her confusions, the domestic metaphor replacing homely tenderness, because the drafty museum, of course, the room is compared, the space is compared to a drafty museum. So, metaphorically, she is comparing all these surroundings and environment to a very kind of a objectivity. The mother and the others, don't they really know how to react? They are just standing blank as walls, empty, dark, no feelings, no emotions, very cold and immovable. They are not changing, they are frozen like ice, with no warm feelings, with no passion, with no love, nothing. So here, the second stanza is a confession of the mother. She is suffering a lot of pain, which is not visible to others, which is not apparent. Her feelings are at arm's length from what she was told her to expect, because the parent's voice reflects the arrival of the child. Now it is compared to a priceless, worthless statue in a museum. So the presence is acknowledged by a blankness, which is felt by the senses. So, here, the idea of the personal versus the impersonal is repeated. The private space is violated by this baby. Now, the presence of this baby allows for the public. The baby is left to the public for close examination, investigation, and exploration. Moving on to the third stanza, I'm no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacements at the wind's hand. All night your mouth breath flickers among the flat pink roses. I wake to listen. A far sea moves in my ear. So here comes the third stanza. Here the speaker becomes directly first person, because she is saying, I am no more your mother. And in a stanza that has two lines, she's making it together. Then the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow. And here, um, the poet says that here she is denying, she's denying, and she's metaphorically distancing herself from the child, from the baby. And she's in fact consider that is becoming a cloud. By becoming a cloud, the mother speaker is saying that she is a vessel, she is a vessel, she is a vehicle, and she is just a natural carrier. Than the cloud, I am not your mother anymore. I was just a carrier. I was just a vehicle, and I was just an agent who was instrumental in bringing you to this world, nothing else. I don't have any other attachment or relationship with you now anymore, not anymore. And I disappear and I thin out, you know. And this is quite an image, because the cloud distills a mirror, and it tries to reflect its own demise as the wind gets up, effacing at the wind's hand, the winds of change, maybe the fate itself, and the child, a mirror image of the mother who essentially fades in the background. So the movement of the wind is changing. So the mother, the speaker of the poem is conveying to the child, see, now we are two. We were one a couple of minutes back till you were born in this world. And once you're born or you come out of my womb, the last tie, the last kind of networking, the last thread between us is cut, it's severed. No more am I your mother. So then the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacement at the wind's hand. Maybe she's talking about the powerful fate which plays, which is very instrumental in our lives. So it shows an image, the cloud distilling a mirror or taking all the essentials to reflect its own demise as the wind is rising up, the wind of change, and she is continuing her alienation by calling herself no more am I your mother. I am just a cloud which reflects its own quality with the help of other elements. So that is what she tries to tell, or she tries to convey to her baby. All night your moth breath. So here, moth breath, which is light of the night, very soft. Maybe uh, we don't know. Maybe the location's changed. Maybe a garden or outdoors, or she's standing at these steps towards the garden. And here, this could be the speaker listening to the baby. The baby is breathing, but thinking of the flowers of the night's garden where the moths are flying. Uh, you know, your moth breath means the whole night the mother listens to the breathing baby. The baby is breathing very soft, very tenderly, making beautiful little noises and music and sounds, the innocent, childish, very cute sounds it is making. It flickers among the flat pink roses, and I wake to listen. So I am just listening to it, This is a very feminine stanza which takes the reader out of this drafty museum and out of this cloud and away from this wind, from all these surroundings, we are suddenly transformed, or sorry, transferred. That is, the readers are taken or we are drifted to a very beautiful garden, maybe the natural environment around the house. And this, again, is a separation through distance. Again, the mother hears the sea as she listens to her baby. And this reinforces the idea that for all the closeness and intimacy, there is, in fact, an expansion of this relationship because the sea, the far sea, it echoes. It echoes the depth of the relationship between a mother and a child. And it shows a very vast and extensive, long, long years to come. So, with time, motherhood gradually grows within her as she watches her child is growing, and this natural feeling comes as she stays more or less part of her life. And every night, it is the mother alone listens to a baby. It's a mother who takes care of us. It is a mother who is worried and concerned. It's a mother who spends sleepless nights, to take care of us. So here she is becoming more and more maternal. She is redeeming the motherhood. The maternal instincts and emotions are being emotive in these lines as she enjoys beautiful pink roses as they are flickering. Maybe she is singing a lullaby or she's just rocking her baby to sleep. And she could see these beautiful visuals in the garden and the physical surroundings of the around the house. So this, in fact, this stanza is a relief to the readers because we were disturbed and distressed by the drafty museum that she spoke of. And then again, when she said that I'm no more your mother, we really felt an alienation. We really felt hurt. She is suddenly tearing herself apart from this baby, leaving it alone. So here, this there is some sort of a warmth and passion and love for her baby as she listens to. She could hear, far see the voice of the baby, the breathing, the breathing, the breath of the baby, and the sleeping baby, and all those beautiful visuals. Everything brings to her mind, or everything brings to her ears, the voice, the vastness, the depths of the fathomless, the immeasurable depths of sea. So she is expecting, or she's anticipating long years to come by. This is, in fact, a really wonderful stanza after two grim stanzas of the poem where she talks about the distancing and the alienation effect. Towards this fifth stanza of the poem, Plath, the speaker of the poem, says, "One cry, and I stumble from bed, cow heavy and floral, in my Victorian nightgown. Your mouth opens clean as a cat's. The window square whitens and swallows its dull stars, and now you try your handful of notes. The clear vowels rise like balloons." Yes, one cry of her baby as the baby grows, as the baby pours forth its innocence, as the baby fills her life and her ears and her eyes, lots of beautiful and charming and cute emotions and feelings. Motherhood in her grows. She realizes that even though life is full of obstacles, life is full of the fret and miseries and the miseries, the worries and woes of life. In spite, amid all these issues, her baby is her the only resolution, the only resort of, the only source of joy and happiness. So the motherhood gradually grows in her, and one cry from her baby, this wakes her up, even if she falls off, even if she dozes off to sleep, the baby, one cry or a slight voice or a slight movement from the baby, she involuntarily wakes up and she does go up to the child and feed her, takes care of her, or she meets all kinds of needs, even without articulating. You know that a baby, a child starts learning to speak or making voices or sounds, some sort of a communication properly by the age of 1 or 2 years of age. Till then, only the mother knows what the child needs or a baby needs. This is, in fact, a quite unbelievable kind of relationship and comprehension, how a mother understands and comprehends and realizes the needs of a baby without being articulated or without being communicated and said properly. As the baby's hunger is calmed, it starts making sweet sounds as if she's trying to say something to her mother. That is it. When I hear your cries, I can't help running up to you. And she is actually when she talks about the beautiful pink roses in the previous stanzas, and the beautiful garden sides, and the big voices from the sea, of course. She was lost. She was slowly drifted from this world, but then an immediate, sudden cry from this baby brings her back to this real world, and this is an instinctive reaction to the baby. Now, the mother has grown in size, the mother is too heavy, the mother is too fat, she is cow heavy. Her physical features have been damaged, or she is now clumsy, very fat. She is feeling slow and grounded, an image that is almost comical, especially when she's talking about a Victorian nightgown. She's wearing a nightgown because it's easy for her to tend and take care of a baby rather than gaudy big dresses and all. She's stumbling and she's clumsy, and together with the mouth breath of the baby. And then she says that this image shows how a baby wakes up from sleep and it is hungry and it is wailing and crying for getting milk. Only then the mother comes up and she starts feeding her baby. And while she's feeding, she's about to feed the baby, it opens its mouth like a cat. Okay. The window scare whitens and swallows. So here, the speaker says that the window square, it is whitening and it swallows its dull stars. Talks about the starry night sky before returning to the baby, and it's attempts at verbal speech. That is it. You are trying to. So this is a very beautiful image or a very beautiful picture. The baby is suddenly waking up and crying and calling and waiting for mama to come to near it and feed her and quench her thirst and satisfy her hunger, her or his hunger. Now, while the mother is trying to feed the baby, she is very happy. She's contented because a mother's embrace, a mother's lap, and a mother's body is a baby's perfect heaven. A baby is too secure and comfortable, is no not at all comfortable and secure anywhere else than a mother's embrace and her chest, her bosom. A mother's bosom is her a real perfect heaven for a baby. And while she is happy, contented, feeding and drinking milk and getting her hunger and her pain and her all woes and sorrows of this hunger is getting satisfied, and she is really happy. And then she is trying to communicate with her mother. She's trying to make a small sound. That's a vowel kind of communication. And she's trying to communicate and interact with her mother, making a handful of notes. And these vowels, A, E, I, O, U, she's trying to make some sort of a childish or babyish kind of noises and sounds just to show her happiness, just to show her love towards her mother. A baby is trying to identify and recognize its mother, by the smell and by some improper visuals. So all these takes place during the process of feeding. The feeding process is extremely a beautiful sight. A mother feeding a baby, that's the most beautiful image in this world, where a mother is happy at the same time the child or the baby is even more happy. So the mother child relationship is bounded there and is established and registered during this feeding process. And the child is trying to touch and make a lot of noises to get the attention of its mother. And the mother is trying to sing for her baby, and the baby's speech is experienced as singing, which links back. So that is why this is actually the morning song. And the comparison with balloons, suggesting the lightness, the playfulness, and things that leave this earth. The child is trying to communicate with the mother, making a lot of noises and voices, just like vowels. Why vowels? Because they are very light and they are very they are abrupt. And when the baby is trying to make a lot of noises, they are rising and leaving these earth. They are flowing, they are floating up and rising up like a balloon. Balloons are of course very light, they fly in the air and they're very playful. All these things suggest. So, balloons, the image of a balloon, the image of vowels suggest all these playfulness and happiness and lightness. Very pleasant image that Sylvia Plath portrays towards the end of the poem, which shows that she is matured and she has grown as a mother. And this, in fact, signifies the title of the poem, that is Morning Song. So the fact that the maternal emotions, they are a product of constant try, and it is not an automatic occurrence, that is discussed through this poem. The poem is in fact a confession by Plath, about the numbness of blank emotions that she went through during the birth of her child and the detachment she felt towards her offspring. So you could see the themes of motherhood, separation, and all sort of painful situation and confusions and doubts that she went through during the birth of her child and the detachment she felt towards her offspring. Once the baby is gone out of your body, there is some sort of an alienation and detachment and distancing that a mother usually feels, and this is quite natural and quite obvious through images, through surreal images and objectivity in words. She expresses these odd kind of feeling, this ambiguous feeling that she had to go through during the time of childbirth and child rearing. Especially, she talks about she is referring to the birth of her daughter Freda Rebecca. So that is a poem here. You can see a picture of Sylvia Plath with her two uh, beautiful babies. Of course, you can see Freda Rebecca there, and Nicole is in her hands, lying on his lap. Look at the happy mother there with her child. And here, Plath has used a lot of images here, in fact, through this poem. She talks about how a woman doesn't attain the maternal bond just by giving birth to a child. She says that childbirth is a process, it's a very complicated, a complex process through which every woman, basically almost every woman, goes through or experiences. But then the relationship between a mother and a child is established not simply by this childbirth. With the motherhood is exactly a process learned and acquired with the passage of time. With the birth of a child, the birth of a mother takes place. It is only through the birth of a child that a mother is born. As the child learns her lessons to be a child, the mother learns her lessons of motherhood, and the growth is reciprocal, the growth is mutual. That is what Plath is trying to convey to us. This a childbirth or giving birth to a child, uh, the delivery of a child, the delivery, a mother, a woman giving or delivering a baby or a child is in fact a physical process, which is very complicated. But then you learn a lot of becoming a mother only after the child is born and leaves your womb. Just as the child learns her lessons to be a child is first and foremost a child, She has to be or he has to be a child at the foremost. Likewise, a mother is also learning all these things from her motherhood. And this growth of a mother and a child is mutual and reciprocal and complementary to each other. The poet wants to deal with motherhood in a patriarchal, masculine way rather than feminist qualities that is endowed to her. Maybe that's the reason she uses a lot of surrealistic images. At the same time, she uses a lot of objective images and symbols in this poem, just like a fat gold watch and drafty museum and the cloud, the effacement of this wind, etc., etc. So the mother-child bond. Here you can see again Sylvia Plath with her children, Freda and Nicholas. Of course, pitifully, 46 years later, or 46 years after Sylvia Plath committed suicide, her son Nicholas too hanged himself at the age of 47, and that was really unfortunate. A family hit hard by so much of tragedies and emotional fluctuations in their life and their character and their individuality. So all these things are in fact really saddening and distressing. So the mother-child bond is considered the purest. It's very strong and most natural bond in the whole universe of relationship. So the emotions are meant to be inevitable part of a woman's life. We psychologically, there is a stereotypical notion that a woman is emotional, but never a man. So Plath makes it clear, makes a point clear that emotions are, it's a woman who is meant to be emotional. But the poet wants to point to the fact that it is not the same as it is perceived always. A woman might not feel the maternal instincts even when a child is born. There lies the uniqueness and distinctiveness of the poem. Normally, writer, a female poet, can imbue her poem with lots of feminine feelings, a lot of soft feelings and tender feelings. But Plath is unique and distinct here. Plath is not a regular poet. Plath is unusual and amazing in this regard. You know, she says that a woman may not feel soft or tender towards her baby just immediately after the childbirth. It's a process of growth, you know, just like an individual is born and grow. Everything takes, it takes time. It is not just you assume, you attribute so many stereotypical notions and concepts and conventions in this world, in this life. But Plath is never ready to, Plath is always reluctant, and she's a revolutionary, and she reacts, she's a rebel to all these kind of stereotypical notions underlying the society and this conventional life. But she says that there is a chance that this feminine nature, after the child is born, maybe she also shall grow into her as the child is slowly becoming. It is very slowly, gradually, that a child becomes a part of a mother's life, and that is when the emotions become mutual. That is why she brought in the image of feeding, feeding milk, a mother feeding to her, feeding her child. This symbiotic relationship that a mother can't exist without a child, and the child cannot exist without a mother. This is some sort of a symbiotic relationship which is attained as a result, as a consequence of a slow process of acceptance and understanding. This is not only restricted or limited to a relationship between a mother and a child, but every relationship. That is what Plath focuses. She talks about a mother child relationship in Morning Song, but all the more, you can say that this theory or this philosophy of Plath can be generalized, can be universalized, and it can be attributed or applied to every sort of relationship, because a relationship, it should take time, it should have space and time to grow, and it should be permitted and allowed. It should be it must be given freedom of space and time to get established, to have a mutual sort of relationship, to have mutual ties and acceptance and understanding with each other, you know. And all these things should be devoid or kept apart or away from the stereotypical notions of the gender biases and judgments. The poet wants to prove that no emotion is the ultimate outcome of categorized perceptions, you know. Rather, it is born out of mutual consent and understanding of the situation. You should have a consent. You should accept each other. They should, that is what I told you. There should be, you live and you let others live. So time only proves how it shall grow and what it shall grow into. This is not restricted only to a relationship between a mother and a child, but in fact, it is applicable to, it is, this is how it is elevated to a universal status where it is applicable to every relationship. That is, you need to have understanding, you need to have mutual acceptance, and you must give up, there should be temporal and spatial permission or freedom for every little relationship to get established, registered, bounded, and set going between each other. So that is all about Morning Song. Thank you guys, thank you for watching. See you in the next video lesson.